Well, hello, Milwaukee. It's good to be back. It's good to be back. I tell you what, they told me it's going to be indoors. You are a hardy bunch of Milwaukee. Sheriff, how you doing? Look, Terrence, thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for exercising your power as a young voter first time. You're an inspiration, man. And I want you to know that a lot of us in here, growing up as kids, understood what it was like to be no bullies. I hadn't planned on saying this in light of what your introduction. Sheriff and Tom's heard me say this before, the mayor. When I was a kid, I used to stutter. You want to learn what bullies are like, be a stuttering kid. Talk like that, everybody thinks they can make fun of you. So I'm used to bullies. Matter of fact, I used to have a nickname in school, Tom. They used to call me Shoe Leather. The reason they called me Shoe Leather, I was a little runt, but you could beat me, but I'd hurt you. It's like pounding in a shoe leather. But I tell you what, I think you made a great metaphor about what's going on here. You're making your family really proud. And Joanne, I want to thank you for all you do to lift up this community, bringing pride and dignity and jobs in Milwaukee. My dad used to have an expression. He lost his job in Scranton, Pennsylvania when I was a kid. And he took us to my grandpops, my mom's dad. My grandmom was passed. And so we said, you're going to live here for about a year. I'm going to commute every day from Scranton, Pennsylvania down to Wilmington, Delaware, where there's jobs, Joey. And when I get one, I'll be back for you and you, Mom, and your brother and your sister. My sister's with me today, too. Where's my sister, Valerie? She's my best friend in the world. Anyway, Val. And he said, it's only 157 miles away, Wilmington, Delaware. He'd come home every weekend. And when we got down to Wilmington and he finally got a job that we could bring us down and be able to rent an apartment, he used to always have an expression, Sheriff. He'd say, you know, Joey, a job's about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about your dignity. It's about respect. It's about your place in the community. It's about being able to look your kid in the eye and say, honey, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. As Gwen knows, there's not an awful lot of people out there right now, a lot of hardworking people who can't say it's going to be okay. They're in trouble. Statistics show, for example, that over 50% of the American people, I think actually it's 49% to be precise, got a bill for $400 in 1 month they didn't anticipate. They'd have to borrow the money or sell something. So a lot of people are still hurting. And Gwen, let's send her back, because I tell you what, she is a voice for Milwaukee, a voice for the country. And I'm sure glad you're on my side, kid. Sure glad you're on my side, because I'm on yours. I want to thank you all for welcoming me today. Tom, you've been a good friend for a long time. Thank you, pal. Tom endorsed me when they said, Joe, who's running for what? Anyway, but thank you, Tom. And Sheriff Lucas, and Sheriff Mahoney, and Ambassador Joan Prince, I want to thank you all for being here. There you are. Okay. And look, it's great to be back with you. Folks, there's only 4 days left. Millions of Americans have already voted. They tell me now it's up to about 85 million Americans have already voted. And millions more are going to vote before this election is over. And I believe when you use your power, the power to vote, you can change the course of the country and, quite frankly, right now, the course of the world, because it's leaderless now. And we're going to start right here in Wisconsin. Tom remembers I came up here campaigning for Hillary. And for a whole lot of reasons, not all which were her fault, ended up not taking it as seriously. We thought it was different. I've been here a lot. And by the way, when I get elected, if I get elected, I'm coming back, Tom. Look, in these final days, we got to keep our sense of empowerment here, a sense of optimism, what we can do together. But I know it's hard. More than 225,000 people, I think it's 229 as I speak, have already lost their lives to COVID-19. 2,000 here in Wisconsin, 600 here in Milwaukee County. Each one memorialized by an empty chair this morning at breakfast or tonight at dinner. An empty chair at MacArthur Square. And now folks are getting hit by a new big wave of infections across the country. This week, Wisconsin, like other states, set a new record for daily cases. Hospitals are running short on beds. You just had to open a field hospital. That's what we're facing. We've now hit 9 million cases in the United States of America. We make up 4% of the world's population. We have 20% of the world's deaths. 9 million new cases nationwide. Another tragic milestone. Millions of people out of work, on the edge, and they can't see the light. They're not sure how dark it's going to remain. Wisconsin is down 20,000 manufacturing jobs, even since this pandemic began. And the thing that bothers me the most was a president who gave up. Over the weekend, his chief of staff said what we knew. Quote, "We're not going to control the pandemic," end of quote. We're not going to control the pandemic. Yet last week when I debated the president, he said, quote, "We're rounding the corner. It's going away. We're learning to live with it." You may remember what I said. It may have been viewed as harsh by some. I told him, we're not learning to live with it. You're asking us to learning to die with it. Because people continue to die. It's estimated that over 200,000 more people will die between now and the end of the year by the leading experts who haven't been wrong yet. You know, did you hear what he said today? He said today at a rally that our doctors are the problem because they're putting their lives on the line, busting their necks. He said they're making up deaths from COVID-19 because they get more money. They're making up deaths. People aren't really dying from COVID, they're dying for other things, but they're saying it's COVID to make the numbers go up. My Lord. By the way, is Monica Wadley here? Monica is an ICU nurse. I spent some time with Monica on the phone and her two kids. And Monica told me what my son-in-law, who's a doc in Philly, told me when this all began. While we were waiting for PPP, the mask and the gowns and all the gear, so many docs, so many nurses, so many first responders, after they did their job, were afraid to go home because they'd taken the virus home to their children. Monica told me how her husband would wait in the garage so she could change and put on a bathrobe before she even went in the house and shower. So many people, over 1,000 Monicas, have given their lives trying to save their lives. And this guy says that they're raking it up because they want to make more money. Doctors and nurses go to work every single day. Donald Trump should stop attacking them and start doing his job. This is the same man who told us when he was told about 4 weeks ago, 3-4 weeks ago, that we were losing 1,000 lives a day. Remember what he said? He said, "It is what it is." Isn't that useful? It is what it is. Well, it is what it is because he is who he is. That's the problem. Donald Trump waved the white flag, surrendered to the virus. But the American people don't give up. We don't give in. Unlike Donald Trump, we're not going to surrender to this virus. We're simply not going to surrender. Look, I put in place a plan with this pandemic responsibly. I set it out back in May, and then again in June and in July. The way we can bring this country together around testing, tracing, masking. It's estimated that by leading doctors in America that if we just wore these masks for the remainder of this calendar year, we could save up to another 100,000 lives. Dr. Fauci, who's been not treated very well by the president, who's been with 3 other presidents in the same role, one of the most respected guys in the world. He's called for a mask mandate. This isn't a political statement of us wearing these masks. For God's sake, it's a patriotic duty. The reason you're wearing the mask is not to save yourself, but to save your neighbor, the person across from you, the person who you're next to. But still, Donald Trump refuses to listen to the science. He's politicized the race for vaccine as well. Instead of planning for its safe, equitable, and free distribution, what's he doing? He's talking about things that are just not even in the realm of possibility. We'll have this by September. We'll have it by, it goes on. Look, folks, he refused to bring leaders, by the way, of both parties together. You know, the House of Representatives, Gwen can tell you, has already passed 3 major pieces of legislation. 2 CARES Act and then the HEROES Act. Provides all the money that is necessary to safely open schools and businesses and do it in a way that they can stay open. But it costs money. Look at all the people who've gone out of business, all the small businesses. We know how to open businesses. We know what to do it safely, but it costs to open our schools nationwide. It's estimated it will cost $200 billion to do it safely. To provide everybody with the PPE, provide everybody, change the ventilation systems, make sure you have separators, make sure you're in a position where we have the sanitary conditions that are wiped down, smaller classes, more teachers. But what do we do? The money's already been there. They've already passed it. What's happened? The president hasn't got out of his golf bunker in his golf course in the summer, or the bunker in the White House since then, to bring people together. Look, find anybody, Democrat or Republican, who served in the Congress, the Senate, the House. Ask them, can they ever remember a time when there's been a national crisis, and this is a national crisis, that the president hasn't brought them all together and said, we're staying here till we fix this. We're going to work it out. He hadn't even talked to y'all. Look, folks, we're going to bring the Republicans and Democrats together and deliver economic relief for working families and schools and businesses, I promise you. I know how to do this. As I said before, I'm not going to shut down the economy. I'm going to shut down the virus. Look, Donald Trump inherited a strong economy from Barack and me, but he squandered that economy, just like he squandered everything he's inherited. Frankly, I've dealt with guys like Trump my whole life, guys who think they're better than you because they have a lot of money, look down on you because they live in a better home. But tell you what, we understand how this works. Folks, the people who built this country weren't Wall Street and investment bankers and CEOs. They're hard-working Americans, middle-class folks, working-class folks who built the middle class, and unions built the middle class. Look, we know, as Gwen said, we can build back better with an economy that rewards work, not wealth. Right now, it rewards wealth, not work. We can do it without raising taxes on any working person in the middle class. I give you my word as a Biden, if you make less than $400,000, if I'm elected president, you're not going to see a penny of your taxes go up. Not a penny. He keeps lying about my plan. But I tell you what, I'm going to ask the wealthiest Americans and the biggest corporations. By the way, 91 of the Fortune 500 companies pay no tax at all. Zero. Zero tax. And they make billions of dollars. Folks, it's about time people start paying their fair share. It's not a punishment. Pay your fair share. Why should a firefighter, why should a sheriff, why should a cop, why should an educator, why should a nurse pay a higher tax rate, which you do, than they pay? You do that. You pay a higher tax rate. And by the way, why should you pay more taxes than Donald Trump? $750 This guy loves talking about corruption. I've released 22 years of my tax returns. You can go online and see them. Well, guess what? He hadn't released one single year of his tax returns. What the hell is he hiding? What's in there? You know, working families and middle-class people, you need help. They need help, particularly first-term home buyers. Be able to pay for health care premiums, child care, care for aging loved ones. Just to get a new hot water heater. I don't know about you, but the kitchen tables I was raised around, you're sitting there, and I can hear my dad now, well, we can't get those 4 new tires because you have to ride on those ball tires a little while longer until we get by next month. When that hot water heater goes out, what are we going to do? Who's going to tell her she can't go back to the community college because they don't have the money? They're the conversations taking place all across America today. And what's Trump trying to do? Raise your cost and standard of living. He's going to be in the Supreme Court. Even if we win, he'll still be in the Supreme Court in 9 days, 10 days, asking the Supreme Court with our new justice who was put on the court for the purpose of destroying the Affordable Care Act to rip it out root and branch, eliminate it all. If they get their way, 100 million Americans will lose protections for pre-existing conditions, including 2.5 million Wisconsinites. 2.5, so if you have diabetes, you've had cancer, you've had breast cancer, whatever it is, whatever your pre-existing condition, you won't be able to afford it because they can jack up the price beyond your capacity. Women will once again be charged more for the same health care than a man is charged for just because they're a woman. People forget that that's what it was before we passed the Affordable Care Act. Look, Donald Trump thinks health care is a privilege. I think it's a right people should have. If we all get out and vote, we'll not only restore Obamacare, but we'll strengthen and build on it. So you can keep your private insurance. Or you can choose a Medicare-like option that will add to Obamacare, which we wanted to do the first time, but couldn't get the votes. We'll increase subsidies to lower your premiums and deductibles, out-of-pocket spending, and surprise billings. And we will reduce the cost of prescriptions by 60%. I'm not making that up. That comes from saying we're going to insist, and we have the votes to do it in this next election, that Medicare can negotiate with the drug companies to say how much they're going to be willing to pay for whatever drug they have. Look, folks, we're going to make sure we keep the protections for people with pre-existing conditions. Meanwhile, Social Security, the actuary of Social Security has said, if Donald Trump gets reelected, he says he's going to change Social Security. Based on the change he wants to make, the actuary at Social Security said Social Security will be bankrupt by 2023. I'm not making this stuff up. It's real. Folks, I'm going to protect Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And guess what? He's not going to be able to do it because we're going to win this election. Look, let's not forget how weak Donald Trump has been and chaotic. He talks about trade policy. My God, what a disaster he's been. Trump's trade policy has decimated, devastated the Wisconsin dairy industry. In 2017 to 2019, Wisconsin lost 15% of its dairy farms. And last year, Wisconsin lost more dairy farms than any state in the nation. Since the start of the trade war, Wisconsin has seen mass layoffs surge by 25%. And even before COVID hit, Wisconsin saw big declines in manufacturing jobs. After Trump rolled out his irresponsible tax giveaways, Harley-Davidson slashed 800 manufacturing jobs, repurchased almost $700 million of his own stock so the corporate heads could make a lot more money, and none of it went to the employees. And then shifted some of his production overseas. So much for helping. Look, my policies, right now, by the way, the deficit with China is higher than it was in our administration. Look, at the end of the Trump tax loopholes that incentivize companies to ship jobs overseas, these new laws that just got passed for real, adds 10%, I'm going to add a 10% surtax to any company that ships jobs overseas. And companies that invest in strengthening American manufacturing or bring jobs back home, I'm going to offer a 10% tax credit. And by the way, the President of the United States awards over $600 billion in contracts a year for our military, for all the things we build, federal buildings. Well, it's not a violation of any trade law. No one's done it, but I promise you I'm going to do it. Not a single solitary contract will be awarded unless all the products used by that contractor are made in America. All of them. Right here in America. And by the way, when I talk about my economic plan, it's not some liberal think tank that talks about how good it is. Moody's, a Wall Street major firm, has pointed out, after looking at my plan for an economy and his, that we will create 18.6 million jobs under the Biden plan. $1 trillion more in GDP than Trump. Folks, look, the fact is that we're now in a situation where this president is in a position that he doesn't know what he's doing. If you notice what Donald Trump has spent a lot of time doing, he spent a lot of time rolling out irresponsible corporate tax cuts in the meantime. Do you realize that during this pandemic, the billionaires in America, they're all listed, have made over $300 billion more? $300 billion more? How about you guys? Y'all doing great, right? You got all that money. Look, folks, we're in a situation where the president now finds himself, the thing that bothers me most about all he's done is the way he talks about our military being suckers and losers. Yeah. Think about this. A lot of you women and men served in the military. A lot of Wisconsinites served. My son, Bo, gave up the Attorney General's job in the state of Delaware to volunteer to go to Iraq for a year. He won the Bronze Star, the Conspicuous Service Medal. He came home with cancer after being near birth. He came home anyway. He's given months to live. And guess what? He wasn't a loser. He wasn't a sucker. He was a patriot. Just like your sons and daughters, your parents and grandparents. Look, folks, if you ever wonder, Trump keeps talking about how strong he is. He's strong, and the rest of the nations listen to him. Everybody's afraid of him. Well, let me tell you what. He's the first president I'm aware of in American history that 6 generals, including his former chief of staff, 6 of them left, resigned, and said he wasn't fit to be commander-in-chief. General Stanley McChrystal, Special Operations Commander. He's the guy that oversaw the bin Laden raid. Bill McGraven. And 22, he oversaw. He was the SEAL. He headed up the SEALs. And 22 4-stars have endorsed me, saying they trust me to be the next commander-in-chief of the United States military. Folks, it's about respect. It's about support. And that's why the Military Times, which the staff tried to wipe out, Military Times just wrote an article saying more active duty troops support Biden than Trump. So much for the guy who talks about what a tough guy is and why everybody listens to him. Look, that's why we have to support the military, and we have to make sure we considerably invest more, which don't have to take the time to talk to you tonight about, but invest significantly more in dealing with the Veterans Administration. And while Donald Trump fails to condemn white supremacy, we can vote to deliver racial justice. Folks, A season of protest has broken out all over this nation. And protesting is not burning and looting and violence. It must never be tolerated. It won't. That's not protesting. But those protests are cries for justice. The names of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Jacob Blake, they're not going to soon be forgotten. Not by me, not by us, not by this country. We have to vote to meet the challenge of climate crisis as well. More frequent extreme weather. Literally, the planet's at stake. We're told the number of years before it's irreversible is getting narrower and narrower. The West is on fire. More forest land has been burned to the ground than the entire square miles of Rhode Island and Connecticut combined. The Midwest is flooding. Here in Wisconsin, extreme weather incurs big costs for your infrastructure. Lake Michigan set a record high this past January. In the South and the East, hurricanes are more severe. Oceans are rising. My state's only 3 feet above sea level, literally. People are worried what happens if we don't change this. Folks, Donald Trump thinks that when he says climate change, he says hoax. Well, this stable genius, as he calls himself, also thinks that wind power causes cancer. The way to stop hurricanes coming across the warm Atlantic from Africa is to maybe drop a nuclear bomb on them. The same stable genius said the problem we had in the Revolutionary War, we didn't have enough airports. In the Revolutionary War, God saved the, anyway. Look, when I hear climate change, I think the health of our children, the security of the planet, and I also think it creates jobs. Jobs here in Wisconsin, all across the country. Folks, combating climate change means saving the planet, protecting our health, and creating millions of good-paying jobs, union jobs, right here in Milwaukee and all across America. We can change the path we're on, but we have to act now because we can't afford 4 more years of Donald Trump. This election, I promise you, is going to hit, your grandkids are going to write about how it set the path for at least a generation here in America. You know, in 2008 and 2012, we came to you all, Barack and me, and we asked for your help. You helped us. And each day we were in office, we worked for you and the entire country. I'm going to do that again. My 2020 campaign is a broad coalition. We welcome Democrats and Republicans and independents. I'm running as a proud Democrat, but I'm going to govern as an American president. There will be no blue states or red states, just the United States. I'll work as hard for those who vote against me as those who voted for me, because that's what a president's supposed to do. The duty to care. The duty to care for everyone. Look, you too have a sacred duty to vote. It matters. Wisconsin matters. So if you haven't already, and most of you probably have, make a plan, vote. Get out to vote. If you've already voted, get your mom, dad, brother, sister, neighbor. Get them to vote. Go to iwillvote.com/WI. You've got to get it done to make sure everyone knows where to vote, when to vote. Look, a press article yesterday, speaking of Donald Trump, 2 days ago actually, said, and I quote, "Never before in modern presidential politics has a candidate been so reliant on wide-scale efforts to depress the vote as Donald Trump." So let's be careful here. Guess what? He's not going to be able to stop us. Not at all. As I said, he'll not silence the over 85 million people who have already voted. They've had enough. People are coming out in droves, waiting 3, 4, 5, 6 hours in other states just to vote. Let me conclude by saying I'll never forget the phrase used by President Kennedy when he decided to send us to the moon, get to the moon. He said, when asked why, he said, we refuse to postpone. We're the United States of America. We refuse to postpone the incredible opportunities available to the American people. I refuse to postpone the enormous possibilities we have. I've been around a while, but I've never been more optimistic about America's chances than I am today. I really mean it. There's nothing beyond our capacity. Nothing. There's no limit to what America can do. We're the only country in the history of the world that's come out of every crisis stronger than when we went in. The only thing that can tear America apart is America itself. And that's exactly what Donald Trump has been doing from the beginning of his campaign last time out. Dividing America, pitting Americans against one another based on race, gender, religion, national origin, ethnicity. It's wrong. That's not who we are. Everybody knows who Donald Trump is. Let's let them know who we are. Who we are in the last 4 days. We choose hope over fear, unity over division, science over fiction, and yes, truth over lies. So folks, it's time to stand up and take back our democracy. We can do this. We'll be better than we've been. We can be who we want to be at our best, the United States of America. I promise you, we can do this. You help me get there. I promise you I'll take responsibility. When I make a mistake, I'll acknowledge it. But I will take responsibility and I won't let you down. God bless you all and may God protect our troops. Thank you for your patience. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right.